I'm Ken Johnston. I'm the global head of sales for Dianomi. Dianomi is a global performance marketing platform. We focus primarily on the financial category, but have recently expanded as well into premium lifestyle, travel, higher education. We help brands reach over 500 million people every single month through partners like the Wall Street Journal, FT, Reuters, CNN Business, etc., through native ad placements, video, mobile in-app, as well as most recently podcasts. And that's something that Emily and I had chatted a bit about. We're fortunate, as I said, with our roots of 20 years plus, starting really born and bred in the financial services category. We're fortunate to call Morgan Stanley a long-term partner of ours, which brings me to our special guest, Emily Barletta. So Emily, welcome.
Thank you.
As was mentioned, you are the managing director at Morgan Stanley for marketing, digital, and strategy, which is quite a lot. You've been there about 6 months, but please tell us a little bit more about what you do at Morgan Stanley and your journey previously.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, hello, everybody. Welcome back for lunch. Thank you for coming back from lunch. We promise to make this a whole lot of fun and get everybody revved up for a really exciting afternoon. I want to echo that thank you to Brand Innovators. I was talking earlier, I've done a lot of these, but never for Brand Innovators before. And the little time I've been here, it's been a great collection of people around all different parts of the industry. So really good to be in this room with you today. I have some of my colleagues here from Morgan Stanley that I'm thrilled to have in the room. So thank you to them for coming and making the trek downtown. But it's super exciting. As Ken said, I've really just been with Morgan Stanley about 6 months, but I've been in the industry almost 16 years now. So before this, I was at JPMC, and then for my longest stint, I spent 13 years at Citigroup in a whole lot of different areas, but really always in the circles of marketing, digital, and data and analytics. And really my sweet spot over the years has been anywhere where those 2 to 3 things come together is really what I love to do and where I've grown my career. So you'll see even in our topic today, those themes are going to be really, really common, how we bring it together to bring a brand to life and bring an amazing organization like Morgan Stanley to you.
Amazing. So I love that background. As you said, longtime veteran in the financial services category, newer at Morgan Stanley. Yeah. So let's start with, through your long storied career, what surprised you most in your time so far at Morgan Stanley versus your prior stops at Citi and JPMC?
Got it. Totally fair question, because now I say I'm on my third bank. So there's a lot of comparing going on. I'm pleased to say, Morgan Stanley in so many ways is such a shining star and has been already in my early tenure an absolutely incredible place to be. So many things stand out. The first of which, and I get this question all the time, internally, externally, with friends, it's the people. Right? Morgan Stanley really touts its culture, touts the values at which we live by as a firm, but also for our community and for people outside. And that is not just deckwear. And that is not just something that they say in a recruiting process or an interview or in PR. It's real, and you feel it every single day when you come to work. And for that reason, it's been just an incredible place to be. Folks are genuinely as kind as they are talented and truly want to work together in a way I have not seen at any other bank. So while they told me that when I was interviewing, I kind of wondered, I was like, could it really be that true, having seen a couple from the inside, and fortunately it is. So that's one big surprise. I think the second one is definitely how bold and how integrated we are in our marketing and the way we talk about our firm. So we'll talk a little bit about today. Morgan Stanley has been around for 87 years and has always had an incredibly stellar reputation. In the last few years has gone through a couple of really strategic, really important acquisitions. Some of which you see big and bold in the market like E-Trade. Others you might not see quite as out in front of you with names like Solium, Eaton Vance, and Parametric with it. That said, if you're in the industry, you know what a big shift that is and a bold move. What's nice is it's been all part of a very steady, very long-term plan. And what that means is you have a very solid base underneath you to do some really cool and bold things. So over the last 2 years, the mission of the marketing team was to say, this is really a new Morgan Stanley, right? We want to be who we've always been, with a stellar reputation, highest form of integrity, but we're a new firm. right? We can now be and talk to every consumer in the U.S. with the acquisition of E-Trade. We have more end-to-end offerings across all of our platforms and lines of business. So how do we do that? How do we go out to market and remember who we are, but really think forward about who we want to be and open ourselves to new and different audiences? And that's really a buzzword inside, is new and different audiences. Who do we want to talk to? And what I've been so impressed with is in this big strategic endeavor, anything that we go out and do, we do in a big, bold way. Like you'll see in this campaign that we've just done called Old School Grit, New World Ideas, which encompasses those two things coming together, respecting the past and going forward, and we'll show you a little bit of it. It's not just about creating a really wonderful ad campaign, which some of my colleagues here did. That's visually beautiful and stunning and memorable when you see it, either the commercial or the print or in any of the other channels, right? But we back it up with a whole lot of employee engagement, a whole lot of community outreach. What does it mean? Like, how do we provide opportunities to women, right? And to underserved communities and different diverse audiences that haven't had access or haven't had a Morgan Stanley that can talk to them in a way that they feel welcomed. So really how ambitious we are and how much we do, right? Whether you call it 360 marketing or integrated marketing, there's always so many layers to everything we do at Morgan Stanley. And we're constantly pushing ourselves every single day to do more, think more, and be more innovative.
Amazing, I think, perspective from you, and certainly a testament to the team who's followed you here today to cheer you on, to your point around the people and how exceptional they are. And I think we certainly vouch for that through our partnership with Morgan Stanley as well. So you've obviously touched a little bit on the new brand campaign, which is phenomenal. And in a minute, we're just going to take a look at a quick video here, which I think will help bring that to life. Obviously, there's a ton of stakeholders involved in that kind of a massive undertaking, both internal and external, as you were alluding to. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of how you had to navigate that, unexpected challenges in everything that's happening in the world right now, and any lessons that you've taken away from the brand transformation?
Yeah, sure. And I will say most of it predates me, right? The team that is here has been living this journey for the past 2 years. It's the first global brand campaign that Morgan Stanley's done in about 5 years, right? So you can see what a big deal this was, and it really was to reintroduce the new firm. I think a big part of it, and what the team has said, they call it a labor of love. Right. This was really about how much the team and the people love Morgan Stanley and want to think about that. Yet it's not all emotional. Right. There was a tremendous amount of research and data that went into coming out with what we're now calling Old School Grit, New World Ideas. So the team did over 1,200 interviews with people internally, did a ton of external research led by my research team there in the back. So you don't go into it blindly. You don't go into it guessing. We did a tremendous amount of vetting at every single stage to make sure we were hitting the right chord, right? Not pleasing everybody, but hitting the right chord and the tone. And then I think what's the most important thing is that we pulled it all the way through. Right? Like I was talking about, if you think about the experience and the way people are digesting information these days, like a commercial is obviously not enough, right? So we are very, very specific and thoughtful about what do we do with our media campaign to make the most of the commercial and the airtime and the out of home and everything else that the team did. And then from there, not just to put out splashy media, but then how do we bring them into the Morgan Stanley fold? So one of the things we were really intent on in this whole big production was to say we got to reach out to new consumers, we got to touch our clients, and we got to treat our own employees like stakeholders and have the result be something they're really proud of. And I'd say from a results perspective, we had 100% positive sentiment on social media, which is pretty much unheard of. We had an overwhelmingly positive response from all of our employees. It said post the campaign, upwards of 88% said they're prouder to work for Morgan Stanley today after seeing the ad than they were before. So there are all those things that were hitting home. But from a consumer perspective, we said we've got to use this opportunity to bring people in the fold so it's not a one-hit wonder, right? How do we engage people? How do we teach them more about Morgan Stanley's products and services in a way that speaks to them in a superhuman voice? And what we really tried to do is break convention of banks. So all of you have a bank, all of you been on banking websites, if you've, either your own or through your work. A lot of times what banks tend to do is serve up their org chart back to the user. right? Use very, very colloquial industry terms, even in sort of public facing arenas. We tried intentionally to break that mold, right? We wanted to speak with a really human voice, be very customer centric, be easy and intuitive, and really signal a change and a transformation in everything you're going to see and do from Morgan Stanley going forward. So, like we said, the brand team led by Jess Schnurr here in the audience spent the last 2 years laboring over the commercial and the ad. My digital organization is just kicked off our journey into this giant transformation we have over the next 2 to 3. But this video will show you a little bit about where we're headed.
A critical part of our campaign strategy was to articulate why Morgan Stanley. The Why Us page on morganstanley.com helps to differentiate us by reinforcing the campaign narrative, highlighting the breadth of our businesses, and delivering on a customer-centered experience. Developing a navigation strategy that helps users quickly understand how and why we're different. Cinematic video ties to the campaign and creates an immersive experience. Brand pillars highlight our unique points of differentiation. Expandable content allows users to dig deeper into our story. An interactive experience allows users to customize their journey. And identify the products and services that are relevant to them. Quotes from team members personalize the brand experience. Highlighted key initiatives set the firm apart and align to consumer values. We provide additional ways for users to get in touch or access Morgan Stanley content if they're not yet ready to convert.
All right, that's it. So if you haven't seen the ad that goes before this, you should. And do me a favor, it's morganstanley.com/whyus, where you can see this page and go play around. And if you need to, give me any feedback you've got. This is really the kickoff. But hopefully you can see it's something new and different. And really where we're bringing consumers through the rest of the funnel, right? And then it's our job to make sure that this is a giant lead generator for all of our lines of business, with content really leading the way, with thought leadership really leading the way, that backs up products and services.
Awesome. I think it really helps to see you bring it to life here with the video. Some of the social engagement metrics you mentioned from my time at Facebook, I can say are unheard of, if not impossible to achieve.
Us.
So that's incredible. I mean, I think it speaks to how well it's gone so far. So I think the broader theme for our session, right, is how do you think about connecting brand and audience through digital transformation? You mentioned to us, and we talked about how you're a lover of all things data and analytics. The last session I thought had some great insights regarding data as an asset. Tell us a little bit more about some of the data and how that's a connection point for you between brand and audience, and how you've leveraged it in the new work.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of brings it together, but we are getting hyper-focused. And like I said, it's a bit art and a bit science, and trying to think about who we want to go after. So if you think about it, 51% of the wealth in the country is held by women, right? Largely women are underserved, and where financial services shows up as one example as an audience, right? That's a huge insight we have, and something that we live and breathe and think about every day. Even so much as to say one of our newest sponsorships is the Women's Tennis Association, right? So we are going big, and we are being bold, and we are trying to be places where women are, so they feel included in the financial discussion, both in their own home, but broader, right? And demystifying some of that. So that's what else I mean about bringing it together. We're trying really, really hard to think about where they are, and have not only sort of our advertising be in those spots, have our media strategy play a huge part. So with this campaign, we went out to places Morgan Stanley has never been before. Right? We did People Magazine. We did Vogue, right? We were on GMA this morning. Like, we are really going big and trying to be in different places, which is really, really interesting from an insider's perspective, the conversations that the team has, like bringing the firm and the firm's leadership along with us, because a lot of these things are not standard Morgan Stanley or hasn't been the Morgan Stanley before. But we've seen it's really working. We've seen great visit rate, great activity rate from some of those placements, and we're just going to dig in and double down more. All that means is we want to get smarter too about the data and understand how they're coming through. We also have some new touch points that experiences like these are actually leading to conversion and where those people are coming from. So I'd say right now, like I'm sure all of you, it's all about snippets. You have really good views into your audiences along the way, but we've got a lot of heart that it's working and a lot of good positive momentum, and we're just going to be doing more and more of it. So from our agenda, it's all about finding new and untapped audiences.
Love that. And you've obviously done all of this in the midst of what we alluded to earlier as just a really challenging macroeconomic environment, certainly in the financial category. We're all well aware of what happened with the collapse of SVB, looming recession fears still. I don't think anybody can still agree on what a definition of a recession actually is, but I'll stop short of asking you for investment advice for my own portfolio here, but
yeah.
I'm sure it'd be better than what I'm doing on my own.
I'll send you to a financial advisor.
Please, thank you. I'm sure you know a few good ones.
I got a good one.
For anybody else.
Yeah.
But how do you balance, this sort of long-term work that you're doing, achieving a long-term vision while also really needing to stay nimble in the short term with all of the market volatility?
It's a really good question. And I go back to having seen 3 different banks and been in marketing, data and analytics, and digital at 3 different banks now. They all handle it differently. And I think our advantage and what makes our day-to-day so good at Morgan Stanley is that they take a long view. And it's not just a new thing they have for the last 20 years. Like when our CEO gets up and talks about the vision for the firm, he's talking about things that they put in place 10 years ago that are now coming to fruition and putting us in a really powerful, really solid spot. We have the same view for the next 10 to 20 years, right? So what's awesome is to be in an organization that's not flip-flopping by quarter. Right. And a lot of banks and a lot of companies have to manage that way. And it's just the reality. Yeah. You live quarter to quarter. We have to stay nimble on some things like that. We just manage our businesses really tightly, but it's amazing to take a longer view. Right. And everything that we're doing now is not for next quarter's results, or even really for 2023 for that matter. We're really building, a platform and a new brand position for the long haul of the firm.
Timely with your quarterly earnings coming out this morning.
Yep, well. They're out.
they're out there. No, I love that. I think a lot of brands in the room probably envy being able to take that long term of a view, for sure. We'll turn it over for questions to the audience in just a couple of minutes. Maybe 2 more quick ones from me is we've obviously heard a lot about the different trends that are happening, whether it be what we're talking about from a cookieless future, data, GPT, what do I need to do from an AI perspective? You can easily be distracted by the next shiny object. What are the trends that you and your team care about right now? What are you paying attention to?
That's a good one. I think AI is the one that's top of on our list. Probably everybody else in the room is saying the same thing. From my own perspective, I think it's probably the most interesting tech and data advancement I've seen in my career, right? A lot of sort of come and go. There's been a lot of buzzwords along the way. I think actually AI and what ChatGPT is doing has the most potential to transform our business, right? If you think about, I'm trying to think of a funny anecdote to liven this up a little bit, but my joke is like personalization is now sort of a bad word in my book because we've all been trying to do it for so long and no one does it well. At least anybody that I've seen. If you think you do it well, please come talk to me because I would love to learn. I think it was like one of the first things that we talked about 15 years when I entered banking, and we've been on the hunt and the search ever since. And no doubt there's the MarTech platforms in place to deliver. We've just never had the intelligence at scale to go feed them. Right. And so I've said this at every bank I've ever been at. Right. We buy a Ferrari, but we're driving it like a go-kart. You buy all these cool tools, but you just aren't using them. And I think what AI and potentially ChatGPT can do is give the fuel for that engine. in a way that like we haven't figured out yet. So I think that could be super transformational, like everything with a ton of caution. Like I still think it's super fascinating and blows my mind. And so having fun playing with it, like I'm sure all of you are.
Yeah, I think we're all still trying to wrap our heads around that one, but I think the possibilities are super fascinating there. So one last question from me, just on behalf of the other partners in the room. When you think about partnership at Morgan Stanley, any advice that you've got in terms of ideal ways of working together? How do we drive value for you and your team?
And if you are partners at Morgan Stanley and we haven't met yet, it's because I've been there 6 months. I'd love to meet you today. So come say hi, or if you think there's an opportunity, let's have a conversation. First and foremost, I think it's authenticity, right? Come in with authenticity, your own expertise, a point of view, and willing to be a partner with some shared goals. I think, a lot of the times, and this is not just my Morgan Stanley experience, but my experience in general, is you see through that pretty quickly. And you really can tell when someone is a vendor and really genuinely interested in your business and wanting to drive it forward and be a partner with you from the get-go versus just a service provider. And I think I much prefer to invest in the latter than the former.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice for all of us. Thanks. Any questions from the audience here?
And they can be anything. Please make it fun.
I think you guys, you're unique in that you have a CHRO who was marketing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, sorry, take the box.
Can you
talk about how you think about, what you're doing from a content and marketing perspective, and when you go at recruiting directly and when it's maybe indirect, like the campaign that you showed?
Yeah.
And like how that can play residual value for recruiting.
Did you used to work at Morgan Stanley?
I did not. I used to be at the Journal, so we've done work with Mandel.
Oh, got it.
So yeah.
First, Mandel Crawley is who you're talking about, and is one of the most exceptional individuals I've met in my entire career, and a huge, awesome. Yeah. Universally awesome, and a huge reason that I'm sitting in this seat with Morgan Stanley on my name tag. And he is the CHRO now. He was in the CMO seat prior, and then was in the business for years before that. So really is a financial guy who's working his way around the firm and doing a phenomenal job doing so. I would say it's huge, right? The way I think about it, it's consumers, current clients, and employees. And when I say employees, I think recruiting as well. Right. And I think how we come across to our own employees echoes to how we come across in the recruiting market and everything we do. Right. And if you're thinking about if you're an experienced hire or you're somebody on a campus somewhere trying to career switch, these ad campaigns are hugely impressionable. How we come across on the website is hugely impactful to whether you want to come work for us. The kind of thought leadership we put out, right? Our podcast, Thoughts on the Market, that we do daily. We're the only firm that does a daily podcast, and it gets a tremendous, tremendous response. And I think all those things are additive. And that's why I think whether you call it integrated marketing or 360 marketing, it really, to do it well, you have to have a great brand, and it has to be able to hit all those marks. So I think that's how we think about it. You would be surprised how much we talk about employees and recruiting day to day, because it's a big pillar for us.
Thanks.
Good. Yeah, great one.
So, you talked a lot about how you're branching out online.
Mm-hmm.
The core bread and butter, I think, of
Yeah. Yep.
What do you do to reaching out to those groups, and kind of how does what you did fit with them?
Well, that's what I mean too in clients. Like, don't ignore your current clients, right? You have to evolve, but stay compelling with what they offer. And that's part of it, right? If you're a current client of Morgan Stanley's, whether you've been there 10 years or, all 87, and some family offices, right, have been, this should still speak to you, right? The first line of the campaign is after 87 years, we have the knowledge and experience, and we look through the world with the wonder of new eyes, which is a nod to the future. And it is really about people who've been there, people who've seen it, people who've seen these market trends up and down, having the grit and the vision to weather it for you. And grit to us really means we're willing to do anything for the client, and we're willing to bring the full power of the firm, which is now a lot bigger, right? With a whole lot more to offer. So if you're a current client sitting in any one of our lines of business, like we want you to make them feel pumped, right? There's more at their disposal. There's more they can do with us. There's more ways to build a relationship. So we think it's everything and hugely important that new clients or existing clients see it the way that we hope.
And are there any like unique channels that you use to reach those kind of more elite clients? Like anything?
Yeah. Well, in our wealth management business, that's a super high touch business, right? Everybody has like a financial advisor or a family office that's working for them. So they are a huge stakeholder for us. Like we almost do nothing without running it by them because they have the direct relationship with the client. So that is our network. That's the distribution network. Those are the stakeholder groups. Those are the focus groups, right? So that's also something we really leverage. And when we went out, why I mentioned 1,200 interviews, right? To sort of come to this tagline, which seems really simple and succinct and like no duh. There was a lot of discussion on how to get here and make sure it said the right thing for us.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
We have time for one more.
Brandon, I think you're up. I can read your name tag from here.
Cool, thank you. So I'll riff off of his question here. So we talked a lot about reaching new and untapped audiences. This is called connecting brand to audience through digital transformation. So how do you reach younger audiences, especially with the acquisition of E-Trade, to reach those young investors when you're kind of handcuffed from targeting, unlike those at Unilever who have free reign to target younger people?
True. Good question. Sounds like you've been in financial services before too.
I wish that I was investing from when I was under 18, but it would be a lot more money.
Absolutely. It's not easy right now. We're taking the approach of like sort of channel and spot, right? I mentioned in media and print, we went out to people in Vogue. Like when you think about social, we're trying to think of new platforms like TikTok. TikTok is sort of like a mini search engine right now for young people. How does Morgan Stanley show up there, though, in a really authentic, on-brand way that can appeal to people like you who wish they were investing from 18 on, right? But in a way that doesn't skew us to some of the trappings. So those are the kind of things we're willing to take some chances. I think also through influencers and some really strategic partnerships that we've done. A great example, and some of you might have seen, has anybody heard of the new banker bag? No? Yay! I'm carrying it today if you'd like to see it. But we did a really cool partnership, and it sounds simple. And this is what I mean about the multiple levels of thinking and marketing at Morgan Stanley. We said a Wall Street symbol forever has been the iconic banker bag, right? It's essentially a gym bag for men to go work out over lunch and come back to their desk and put on their Wall Street vest and like keep trucking. The insight was really like women feel left out in that market, right? If you're here in New York City, you see those old school banker bags on the subway. I think I was given one at every bank. I don't think I ever used it, right? Because it just didn't work for a female. The team predating me had the insight, what if we reimagine the banker bag, a quintessential Wall Street service or Wall Street status symbol for a woman, right? So they didn't do it alone. They didn't, go and just sort of mass produce something. They went and partnered with Rebecca Minkoff, right? And they went high end, they went designer, tried to think about everything a woman in finance needs in her day, and they designed a super slick bag. And when I tell you, to your question about employees and recruits, I think honestly this was originally thought of to be sort of an employee rah-rah, type of endeavor. It took off organically. Right? Between the partnership with Rebecca Minkoff, between what we've seen in social, everywhere else, it literally is blown up. And now it's been so successful with Rebecca. She's sort of a de facto brand ambassador. Mrs. Dow Jones carries one. There's a bunch of people that are on the bandwagon because there was such an untapped need. So the insight really led to this big status symbol. And it's a gorgeous bag, and people all over you're going to see are going to start to carry them. But that's one way, right? And that's just meant to have women in the industry feel included, feel seen, and feel relevant in a way that there was never something like that before. Does that help? Did I answer your question? Okay, good. Good. Oh, yeah, it's right there. That's my bag.
That's a big upgrade. I've got a couple of the old school banker
Right?
bags collecting dust in my closet.
Yes, it's a big upgrade from the canvas bag. Thanks, Monica. Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're out of time. Emily, huge thanks to you for sharing such amazing insight. Thank you, of course, to Brand Innovators and to everybody here for listening.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.